Someone asked me why I'm still making videos about BLM. They believe that BLM was a thing that happened in 2020 that died down now. No, it wasn't. And I also hate when foreigners mouth off in my comments section because they don't grasp American current events. They don't grasp the American past. They don't grasp the American history. They don't grasp the interplay between the different groups of the American people that has gone back to the beginning of this country. A lot of people, like the views on Native Americans that I've covered a bazillion times or a gazillion times, nobody grasps American history. They just don't, especially foreigners, and especially foreigners that aren't white. And even a lot of times the ones that are white liberals seem to grasp it the least. I've gotten in so many fights with Scandinavians and Italians and English people and all these other people and people from Cyprus and people from Egypt and people all over Latin America and people from all over the Arab states. Nobody grasps American current events or American history. In fact, I'm not exactly against Ahmadinejad. I think he was an interesting person, particularly with his seeking the truth regarding certain things that happened in Germany and in German-occupied Europe. I actually thought that Ahmadinejad was a good dude until I see him posting all this Black Lives Matter crap on Twitter. Okay, people do not understand Black Lives Matter. They don't understand the origins of Black Lives Matter, and they think Black Lives Matter started with Black Lives Matter. It did not. As I stated in my last video, this goes back to the 1860s and the incremental rise in anti-white terrorism since the 1860s that people don't grasp. Because they're not Americans, and even if they are Americans, they haven't been paying attention to the history of this country or the history of the interplay between the different groups of people in this country. Now, according to BLM's herstory, which is what they call it on their website, BLM started in 2013. Putting that out there. It started in 2013. Not 2020, 2013. I also want to make sure people understand, people are trying to say that all lives matter is hate speech against Black Americans, or Black people in general. It is not. BLM, or Black Lives Matter, is basically the battle cry of anti-white racism for this century. Okay? And that's what people aren't understanding. It was Black Power in the 60s. Okay? Now it's Black Lives Matter. That is the anti-white, that's the cry of anti-white violence. Okay? So I'm going to go through some modern history. Just a couple months ago in May, Portland, the city of Portland, was set on fire by Black Lives Matter terrorists. Black Lives Matter sets fire to Portland Police Station in April of 2021. Again in May, BLM sets fire to the federal courthouse in May of 2021 in Portland. Now remember, that's an attack on the federal government. That is an act of war against the federal government. That's what I've been trying to point out to people like Donald Trump and Joe Biden, that these are anti-American terrorists that are attacking this government, okay? They are promoting violence of the government. In 2016, Micah Johnson, an Army veteran and Black supremacist who stated, quote, "I want to kill white people, especially white cops," prior to murdering 6 and injuring 11 in the Dallas shooting targeting police that were guarding a Black Lives Matter rally on July 7th, 2016. BLMers have murdered many black children during the Black Lives Matter rallies. Many black children, due to the increased violence at these rallies, many black children have unfortunately been caught in the crossfire because their parents are too stupid to realize that these things are not something you should take children to. Isaiah Johnson chants Black Lives Matter while kneeling on the neck of a white 2-year-old. in July of 2020. Black on Latino violence, black on Asian violence, black on Jewish violence, black on Arab violence, black on gay violence, and black on white violence has been continuing to soar in the United States since the founding of Black Lives Matter. As I pointed out in my last video, Black Lives Matter is a cultural Marxist revolution. Not a Marxist revolution, a cultural Marxist revolution. It is impossible to separate Black Lives Matter from the other black extremist movements going all the way back to the 1860s. They are monolithic in many ways, okay? That's what needs to be understood. The other thing is, what I would like to point out, one of the big things that started the Black Lives Matter movement was the alleged murder of Trayvon Martin. Now, I want you to note, and there's a link to all these things in the description, so please check out the description. Trayvon Martin's girlfriend stated on the stand that Trayvon Martin referred to George Zimmerman as a racial slur, stating that he was a creepy-ass cracker and that he was going to injure him, he was going to attack him. George Zimmerman, if you watch the video with the unedited non-emergency call, not 911 call, non-emergency call, the unedited version, there is by no stretch of the imagination can one take what George Zimmerman said as racist. George Zimmerman had black and Hispanic family members. George Zimmerman himself was Hispanic and Jewish, not white by any stretch of the imagination. George Zimmerman and his wife also basically, they volunteered with at-risk black youths to keep them out of prison. So to call George Zimmerman some kind of anti-black hater or some kind of white supremacist is wrong on so many levels. It's absolutely ridiculous. So essentially what happened is there was a victim of a racist attack that day, but the victim of that racist attack was not Trayvon Martin. It was George Zimmerman. And that's what the truth is. George Zimmerman was targeted because he was believed to be white. Unfortunately, it ended the way it did. People know where I stand on this. I think it was moronic for George Zimmerman to follow Martin, but he did not break the law. And he was attacked by a racist. And that's what needs to be understood there. And that was basically the birth of the modern Black Lives Matter movement. And I think that what people are missing the point of is that if you think this died down, and this is the thing, if you make the mistake of thinking this died down, number one, it hasn't died down. They're still setting fire to whole portions of the country as we're speaking. But more importantly, this is the mistake that was made. Oh, it just died down. It just died down. No, it did not. It did not. And you can't separate BLM from, say, the riots in Baltimore. You can't separate these things. And that is why really the reason I made that video is because somebody who is a foreigner, obviously, and I think a person of color, asked me to make a video calling out conservatives for what he called erroneously calling BLM a communist uprising. No, I will not call out people that are accurately reporting the news. BLM is a cultural Marxist uprising, not a true communist uprising, but a cultural Marxist uprising. It is a violent extremist uprising. It is a number of terror cells in the United States committing terrorist actions against the United States government. I will not call out the conservative media for calling things the way they are. And that's all for this video.